This man is the youngest son of the pharmaceutical company's boss. He wanders around various luxurious parties every day. Unexpectedly, sulfuric acid rain descends from the sky, burning all the people at the party into mincemeat. Subsequently, his siblings also tragically die. Within a span of 2 weeks, the world's largest pharmaceutical company loses 6 heirs. What secrets are hidden behind all of this? Roderick, Usher and Madeline are siblings. They have turned their pharmaceutical company into an empire of wealth and privilege, but the heirs of the Usher dynasty mysteriously die. 6 of them have already died. The once prosperous large family quickly withers. Late at night, Roderick invites prosecutor Jason to meet. Jason goes to the address sent by the other party. The building in front of him is dilapidated. Roderick is inside, drinking a €4 million wine, which is equivalent to twice Jason's annual salary. This time, he invited the prosecutor for a meeting to reveal the cause of his children's deaths. Jason takes out a recorder to record the long-hidden secrets finally exposed. In 1953, at that time, this old mansion was not so dilapidated. It was the place where Roderick and Madeline grew up. Single mother Eliza worked hard to take care of this family. She was the secretary of CEO William at Fortunato Pharmaceuticals. CEO William was a dominant person who liked to impose corporal punishment on children, so Eliza forbade the 2 siblings from going near his house. But Madeline didn't listen and sneaked into William's yard to take a look. As a result, she accidentally injured Roderick's ankle. Eliza came and took the children away. She was grabbed by William, who warned Eliza not to come over without permission. Young Madeline asked William to let go of her mother, without realizing the relationship between them. Afterwards, Eliza took her son back to treat the wound, and told Roderick not to fear getting hurt, because sorrow and adversity are Jesus' kisses. Little did she know that Jesus' kiss would soon descend upon Eliza. That was in the summer of 1962. Eliza fell ill and remained bedridden all day. Due to her faith, she refused medical treatment, and didn't want her body to be contaminated by drugs. Madeline had enough of her mother's ignorance, and decided to go to William to persuade Eliza, because her mother had always admired the boss. Anyone could see the hidden affection in her heart. However, William was afraid to get involved with Eliza, and he drove the 2 of them away. Not long after, Eliza died in her bed. The siblings didn't call the police, but instead made a wooden coffin themselves, and buried Eliza in the backyard. During a heavy rain at night, the soil was washed away, and the body in the coffin was gone. A trail of muddy footprints led to the living room. Could it be that Eliza was still alive? They immediately entered the house to find her, and amidst flashes of lightning and thunder, Madeline pointed behind her brother. Their muddy mother stood there, grabbed Roderick, covered in dirt. Madeline quickly explained, "We had no idea you were still alive." Upon hearing this, Eliza released her son. She walked into the pouring rain, with the 2 children following behind. Eliza barged into William's house, and directly strangled William to death. Then she collapsed beside William, no longer breathing. William's wife stood by screaming, and the rest of the story is easy to guess. The siblings, Roderick and Madeline, are William's children. After successfully taking over the pharmaceutical company, they spent money to cover up their mother's murders, and publicly claimed that William died from a sudden heart attack. Jason didn't understand why Rod told him all this. Roderick explained, "If we're going to talk about the death of the heir, then this story needs to be told, because it reveals Rod's father's identity." Since that night, Roderick vowed not to treat his children the way William did, by shutting them out. So he accepted all of his illegitimate children, including the 6 children born to 5 different women. Rod treats them all equally. Just as he finished speaking, his only granddaughter called. He hung up without hesitation. Jason sarcastically remarked, "So you claim to be accepting all your children, but you won't even answer their calls?" Roderick praised Jason's quick wit, and he couldn't help but recall the last time they met, which was in the courtroom. Jason's opening statement made a deep impression on Rod, and that day was worth commemorating. As it was the last day all 6 children were alive, their memories were brought back to 2 weeks ago. Prosecutor Jason represents the US government, filed a lawsuit against Fortunato Pharmaceuticals, accused them of engaging in deceptive marketing, resulting in the widespread distribution of addictive painkillers, ruining the lives of countless citizens. Additionally, the ruling Roderick siblings have committed numerous crimes during their 40-year reign, but have escaped legal sanctions. The Usher family listened to his statement, without any reaction in their hearts, until Jason mentioned he had an internal whistleblower from the Usher family, who was willing to testify in court. Only then did Roderick's lawyer PYM take notice. He objected to the judge, because Jason violated the basic principle of mandatory disclosure, by presenting a witness without the defense's knowledge. Since Jason has a witness, he did not proceed further. The court adjourned the trial. After returning home, Roderick immediately called a family meeting. He wanted to identify the informant who leaked information. In doing so, there is necessity to introduce his 6 children. First, his eldest son is married and has a daughter. He respects his father wholeheartedly, and is eagerly waiting to inherit the family fortune. He would never betray the family's interests by leaking information. As for his second daughter and her husband, they are striving to launch a health brand called Golden Beetle in the market, hoping to earn Roderick's recognition through their outstanding abilities and performance. As for his third daughter, she is an academic type. She conducts live experiments on monkeys, and is currently researching a project called Heart Mesh. As for his fourth son, he has no interest in competing for his father's favor. He only wants to enjoy his privileged life to the fullest, and indulge in his life as a wealthy second generation. The fifth daughter is not interested in the pharmaceutical industry. She excels in the field of media and public relations. She is responsible for managing the Usher family's image. The conspiracy theory of the informant is causing a headache for the fifth daughter. She instructed her 2 assistants to investigate thoroughly.
We're gonna find out who's talking to the feds, and then I'm gonna freeze their fucking head, and I'm gonna give it to my father on a platinum plate.
As for his sixth son, he is a teenager. He used the startup fund given by his father to open a bar. He wants to expand the business worldwide. In addition to these direct relatives, Juno, the stepmother, also attended the dinner. The children had not arrived at the venue yet. Their family doctor showed up uninvited, and managed to separate everyone to have a conversation with Roderick. The details of their discussion have not been made public yet. After their conversation, Roderick appeared quite low-spirited. Soon, the family dinner began. Roderick returned to his usual state. The children, accompanied by their respective families, took their seats. Madeline had prepared several documents for PYM. These were new confidentiality agreements. If anyone leaked company or family secrets, they would lose their inheritance rights and be expelled from the Usher family. Madeline would ensure that the informant disappeared from this world completely. Meanwhile, Roderick also offered enticing conditions. The person who caught the informant would receive a reward of $50 million. After saying this, he left the restaurant. Upon hearing this, Jason asked, "Could it be that the mention of an informant by me caused these recent incidents?" Roderick claimed that he knew who the murderer was. This brings us back to the night before New Year's Eve in 1979. Roderick and Madeline were dressed in costumes for a masquerade ball. They entered a tavern. It was there that they met Winnie. This woman became the focal point of the entire tragedy. That night, the siblings appeared extremely nervous. Roderick's hands were stained with dirt, indicating that they had experienced something significant. Meanwhile, in the same year, Jason was investigating Fortunato Pharmaceuticals because he discovered that many elderly people were being deceived into participating in a drug trial, and their bodies were later dug up from graves. Within a few days, 5 similar cases had occurred. Considering the stains on Roderick's hands, it seemed that he was involved in this matter. This was also why Jason targeted Roderick. Later, Fortunato Pharmaceuticals heavily promoted Ligadone, claiming it to be a more potent version of Tylenol. However, this medication was addictive, and long-term use led to dependency. Jason became increasingly agitated, and accused Roderick of being a crooked businessman. He deserved to be in prison. Roderick continued to speak. He wanted to talk about the death of his youngest son. The eldest son had told Roderick before his death that he believed their younger brother, Perry, was Jason's informant. Perry was a hedonist who acted without considering the consequences. He disliked being controlled by Roderick. He held a disdain for his elder brother, or rather, they mutually disliked each other. Fortunately, Perry had no interest in the family business. He was focused on running his own bar. He planned to host a party inside and the illegal experimental facility to be demolished. Regardless of the ongoing investigation by the prosecution, the Usher family could not acknowledge ownership of these buildings. Perry organized pop-up nightclubs, utilizing the soon-to-be-demolished buildings, inviting specific wealthy individuals to party. Only exclusive members received invitations, and the invitations were sent as electronic links. If the invitation was not opened within 5 minutes, it would become invalid. Each registered member had to pay $10,000. There were only 100 slots available for each party. With one event, he could earn $1 million, plus $5,000 entrance fees, totaling $5 million. Perry needed mood-enhancing drugs for the parties, so he asked his fourth brother for help. While he was busy planning for the future, Martha, the third sibling, faced a significant setback in her career. The gorilla in the laboratory, who had just undergone a heart transplant, experienced cardiac arrest once again. If she couldn't produce results soon, she would lose all sponsor within 6 months. The worst part was that if the experiment failed, it meant wasting their father's investment of up to $200 million. The news quickly reached Emma, the fifth sister. As night fell, Perry was still busy with his party. Since the buildings had been abandoned for a long time, the water supply system was no longer functional. Although he could contact the municipal government to connect a water pipe, hosting the party was somewhat illegal. He didn't want to involve the authorities. Therefore, Perry planned to connect an emergency water tank on the rooftop.
Tomorrow night?
Yes. Because remember the golden rule. Whoever has the gold.
Roderick chuckled at this point. His thinking was very erratic, as he began discussing this principle again. The first time Roderick saw the golden rule was on a wall in the Fortunato Pharmaceuticals office, where an excerpt from the comic Wizard of Id was posted, emphasizing the phrase "the customer is always right." He came to Fortunato Pharmaceuticals to pitch Ligadone to the new CEO. However, being an illegitimate child didn't help Roderick get a promotion. He remained as a low-level employee on the basement floor. The new boss focused more on medical devices, as unlike pharmaceuticals, they didn't have complex chemical components, and didn't require strict regulatory control. Roderick had to change his approach to convince the boss. He asked how many people needed medical devices in a year. But in a world where people experience pain every moment, the market for painkillers was huge. They had low costs and high profits. His speech was very persuasive, but the boss chose to play it safe and continue selling medical devices. Disappointed, Roderick returned to his apartment. He was already married with children. His wife didn't have much opinion about his sales failure, because she lacked ambition. Yet, Roderick and Madeline were both deeply frustrated. One was an expert in medicine, and the other was a genius in algorithms. Their ability surpassed just these skills.
And if Fortunato won't help us get there, we will trample them on our way.
After resolving the water supply issue for the party, Perry wanted to give his older brother a special gift. He deliberately invited his sister-in-law to the party. The sister-in-law was tired of her mundane marriage, and, of course, couldn't resist the temptation. The sister-in-law lied to her husband and daughter, saying she was going to a gathering with her best friend. She arrived at the party with an excited heart. Before entering the venue, everyone had to place their electronic devices in lockers, and then wear bracelet-like keys. Perry quickly spotted his sister-in-law. He instructed her to enjoy herself, and then returned to the surveillance room on the second floor, capturing the ugly behavior of these social elites. Compared to the profits from the party membership fees, the video footage in Perry's hands was the true wealth. If his older brother saw the true features of his wife, he would surely be very angry. Perry returned to the party to continue having fun. Suddenly, a blonde woman appeared. He was familiar with the identity of every member, and knew she wasn't invited, so he immediately followed her. Perry entered the room, and saw her lying on the big bed. This woman was Winnie, the former barmaid. Although her hairstyle had changed, she showed no signs of aging. It was evident that she was not an ordinary person. Winnie told Perry to stop, or else retribution would soon come knocking at his door. After saying this, she disappeared into the crowd. Before leaving, she left a hint for the sister-in-law, urging her to leave this place quickly, because disaster was about to strike. The party attendees opened the water valve, preparing to reach the climax of the party atmosphere. Little did they know that the water in the tank was corrosive. Everyone, including Perry, was dissolved into a bloody mess, their muscle tissues stuck together, forming a carpet of flesh. Finally, Winnie approached Perry, gave him a gentle kiss, and placed a mask over his face. Upon hearing the news, the police rushed to the scene. PYM also arrived promptly. He looked at the pile of skinless corpses, and struggled to find Perry. PYM took away Perry's phone, and was about to leave when someone grabbed his wrist. It was the sister-in-law, the sole survivor. The story ends here. Roderick tells Jason that the water tank on the roof is not filled with fresh water, but highly acidic pharmaceutical byproducts. This was done to avoid fines from the Environmental Agency. If Perry had paid a little more attention to the family business, he wouldn't have tampered with that water tank. After the accident occurred, the most suspicious aspect of the whole incident, Roderick discovered, was that all the waitstaff had left before the incident happened. Could it be that they knew about the problem with the water tank in advance? Roderick instructed PYM to handle the matter, and find someone to take the blame for Perry, freeing the Usher family from the accident. The PR genius, the fifth sister, believed that they should seize this opportunity to restore the company's image. They could portray the tragically deceased Perry as a philanthropic, kind-hearted billionaire, and capitalize on sympathy. Madeline thought this plan was good, and delegated the relevant matters to Lisa. The Usher family was so ruthless and cold-hearted, transforming every disadvantage into an exploitable resource. That was their winning formula. Apart from that, this mistake made Roderick resent his eldest son. Roderick had reminded him months ago to demolish the non-compliant facility as soon as possible. If his eldest son had followed the instructions, they wouldn't have caused such a huge mess. In the following days, the entire Usher family focused on resolving the incident caused by Perry. Only Lisa hadn't forgotten to help Roderick uncover the mole. She planted spies around her siblings. Unexpectedly, she discovered a secret about Martha, the third sibling. Martha didn't dare to reveal the failure of her heart transplant surgery, and planned to replace the deceased lab chimpanzee with a chimpanzee. Lisa wouldn't let this opportunity slip by, so she ordered her subordinates to continue following up. Meanwhile, Martha was about to go to the hospital to meet a business partner, when she unexpectedly bumped into a heart patient. A bold idea popped into her mind. Martha falsely claimed to be a doctor's assistant, and took away the woman's medical records. Excitedly, she flipped through the files, and marveled at how perfect this woman would be as a test subject. Little did she know that the prey she had set her sights on was Winnie, who appeared on the day of her youngest brother's death. Jason pointed out that during the autopsy performed by the police, derivatives of ligodone were extracted from Perry's body. PYM used his connections to have that part of the autopsy report deleted. Roderick believed it was not worth paying attention to, because ligodone had always been the inspiration muse of the pharmacists. Sometimes he regretted allowing ligodone to be launched in the first place, but the situation at that time was completely out of control. Do you still remember when Roderick pitched ligodone to the new owner of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals? Although the person rejected his proposal on the spot, they directly bought the patent for ligodone from the research and development company. Roderick confronted the person. Since the entire incident was his idea, the new boss said, "Ideas are just farts from the brain. No one pays for a fart." However, he still gave Roderick a little favor by allowing him to stay as an assistant and continue providing money-making ideas. Roderick's wife was happy to hear about his promotion and salary increase. Madeline also agreed that Roderick should remain patient. She used the example of their mother's death and the first foster home they visited, where one person adopted 5 children and lived off the child support payments. The unfortunate siblings and the other 3 children were kept locked in a small room. Roderick bravely stood up and resisted, but ended up being locked in a wardrobe by them, while Madeline acted obediently and slowly gained the trust of the foster parents. Then she obtained their account books and reported them to the welfare agency. This story is exactly like the current situation, with the new boss being foster parents in expensive suits, and Roderick's task is to earn his trust and then strike unexpectedly. At that time, the siblings treated ligodone as their own child, unaware that this small pill would become a huge threat. After Perry's death, they investigated the truth with all their efforts, wanting to know if the waitress had prior knowledge. The witnesses all pointed to a mysterious woman that evening, who had various excuses to call the waitress away from the party scene. PYM found the woman they mentioned in the surveillance footage, and it turned out to be Winnie wearing a mask. Roderick and Madeline didn't immediately recognize her, and could only instruct PYM to continue investigating. Luckily, the key witness, the sister-in-law, was still alive, and once she regained consciousness, she could provide more information. At this moment, Roderick and Madeline couldn't have imagined that the person they were looking for had already knocked on Mary's door. The second daughter has a peculiar hobby. She enjoys watching other women impersonate her, and watching her husband flirt with the imposter. Because the woman Mary often hires fell ill, she found a new person, unbeknownst to her. This move was like inviting the Grim Reaper to the door. Lisa stealthily infiltrated Martha's laboratory, and found the imposter chimpanzee. She took photos as evidence. Unexpectedly, a female security guard suddenly appeared. She was the Winnie from the bar. Winnie pointed out that using chimpanzees for medical research had been banned as early as 2015. Moreover, 90% of human drug trials fail. Martha's torture of these animals is pointless. The Usher family truly has no sane person. Lisa became very angry upon hearing this. She was about to teach this security guard a lesson. However, the other person leaped onto the operating table. Winnie imitated the movements of a chimpanzee and approached step by step. Then she suddenly ripped open her coat, revealing a gruesome surgical incision. At that moment, she seemed to transform into one of those chimpanzees. Lisa took out her phone and started filming. In the instant the flash went off, the camera captured an image of a chimpanzee. The next day, when the laboratory employees arrived for work, they found bloodstains all over the floor. Lisa has been hunted and killed by the chimpanzee. Meanwhile, the fourth son wakes up from his hangover. He realizes his body is covered in blood. He thinks he drunkenly killed someone. He quickly rushes to the bedroom to confirm, but upon finding his friend alive, Jack immediately breathes a sigh of relief. But where did the blood come from? He follows the traces on the ground to the furniture, and sees a black cat stabbed to death. Because the cat was his friend's pet, so Jack goes to the pet hospital to buy a similar cat as a replacement. The staff who receives him is Winnie disguised in different attire. Jack didn't come in vain. He indeed finds a small black cat that meets his requirements, but Winnie says that it's a specific breed of cat, and has already received for adoption applications. Upon hearing this, Jack directly reveals his identity. With the influence of money, Jack successfully takes the kitten with him. Little does he know, he has already fallen into Winnie's trap. After returning home, he receives a call from his father. That's when he learns about his sister's death. Jack had a close relationship with his younger sister. He can't understand why she went to the laboratory, but his family doesn't care about his sister's life or death. They are only concerned about how to release the news to the public. Jack becomes furious upon seeing this. He even asks Roderick to revoke his inheritance rights. He refuses to stay in the meeting room no matter what happened. He angrily returns home. Meanwhile, PYM checks the surveillance footage from last night and discovers that the security guard on duty was replaced. Unfortunately, the pixels make it difficult to identify their appearance. Madeline realizes that the fake security guard and the mysterious person at the party are likely the same woman. After the meeting, Roderick asks Martha to stay for a conversation. He knows well that Lisa never does anything without purpose. If she went to the laboratory, she must have discovered some secret, and Martha is the owner of the laboratory. She knows the reasons better than anyone, but Martha dares not mention the issue with the heart mesh. Seeing her unable to provide a reason, he says he's prepared to withdraw his investment. Upon hearing this, Martha quickly claims that the research has been successful. She's about to begin human experiments. This successfully keeps Roderick's investment intact. Since big words have already been spoken out, Martha accelerates the pace of the experiment. She deceives the patient into signing a liability waiver. On the other side, after Jack brings the black cat home, he constantly encounters misfortune. First, he finds a dead mouse under his pillow. Then he has conflicts with his friends, and the black cat keeps scratching him unexpectedly. What's even more eerie is that nobody else, except Jack, seems to see the cat inside the house. Jack is mentally worn down by its torment, along with the constant appearance of dead birds and mice in his house. He calls Winnie from the shelter.
You gotta take it back. Okay, put it down, most likely. The cat's a fucking psychopath.
Winnie leans against the wall to listen carefully, saying that the cat is hiding inside. Jack follows the sound and walks along the wall. Unexpectedly, the black cat pounces suddenly. He endures the pain and grabs the crazed black cat. He crushes the cat's eyes barehanded. Little did he know, Winnie's eyeballs also pop out. It seems she was controlling the black cat from behind. In the next moment, both the person and the cat disappear. Only strange noises can be heard from the wall. Jack picks up a hammer, prepared to smash the wall and kill the strange cat. At the same time, Mike is guarding his wife's bedside. He's holding a new phone in his hand. PYM found it in Mike's wife's bag. Mike has never seen this phone before. Combined with his wife lying about going to the party, he has a feeling that there's a secret inside. But neither fingerprints nor facial recognition methods can unlock the phone. Mike is getting anxious. In fact, this phone is given by Perry to his sister-in-law. Inside, there's an electronic invitation to the party. Meanwhile, Mary is also facing a problem, because her sister's husband is a famous online fitness coach. He is a spokesperson for the Golden Beetle brand. Mary often watches her husband's live broadcasts online. She unintentionally discovers that Winnie is actually involved in the recordings. The couple's hobbies are all done in private. No woman who impersonates her can openly interact with her husband. This discovery makes Mary feel very uncomfortable. After her husband finishes work, she warns him, "If you dare to have any more dealings with those women, I will personally kill you." The sister's husband finds her words strange. He hasn't seen the people his wife mentioned during the day. Unfortunately, this morning's video was a live stream. It cannot be replayed or reviewed. Roderick and Madeline received the surveillance footage with improved image quality. The familiar faces made them feel a chill in their hearts. Later in the evening, Roderick experienced hallucinations. He saw the corroded body of his young son appearing. He fainted on the spot. Madeline hurriedly rushed over upon hearing the news. After hesitating for a moment, he revealed the reason behind his hallucinations. "Did you remember the day of the family banquet? Roderick met with the family doctor before? In fact, he has CADASIL, a hereditary small artery disease. It progresses to progressive dementia in later stages, thus causing hallucinations. Eliza died from this disease. Due to mentioning his mother, the two siblings talked about many past events. Roderick also mentioned his first meeting with Jason. At that time, Jason was investigating illegal drug experiments. He found the apartment where Roderick lived, because Roderick's signature was on all the consent forms. Roderick's wife immediately recognized that it wasn't her husband's handwriting. She wanted to argue, but Roderick stopped her. He couldn't say the wrong thing and jeopardize his job. So, he claimed he didn't know anything. Jason noticed that the couple's life was not prosperous. They had 2 children to support. He didn't continue to press Roderick for answers. He just left a business card and departed. At that time, Roderick really didn't know anything. He told his boss about the whole incident. He wanted to know who forged his signature. However, the other party kept evading the main point. He only said that they were on the same side. Anyone would approve documents beneficial to the company. So, who signed it was not important. Roderick gave up on pursuing the forgery of his signature. Little did they know, Madeline became very angry upon learning about this. What if this matter was illegal? If it were to be exposed one day, Roderick could very well become a scapegoat. The surname Usher must not be tarnished. She asked her brother to pretend to be on good terms with their boss, and then find a way to deal with Jason. Perhaps one day they could turn the tables on their boss. The reminiscing came to a temporary end. At this moment, Jack's friend went to his house to pick up the cat. To his surprise, he was startled when he pushed the door open. The walls of the entire apartment were smashed and in disarray. Jack was swinging a hammer and going crazy uncontrollably. The friend couldn't see the corpse inside the wall, and thought Jack had gone crazy. Suddenly, Jack saw a black cat running towards the balcony. He immediately ran over with the hammer in hand. As a result, he fell down the stairs and died a tragic death. The man looked at the stormy night with lightning and thunder. He discovered millions of corpses, falling to the ground like raindrops. In an instant, they accumulated into a sea of corpses. He stood on top of a tall building, looking down, knowing that his retribution was about to come. The 6 children of the world's largest pharmaceutical company's CEO died one after another, and there was no connection between the cases. Just when the prosecutor was puzzled, wealthy tycoon Roderick approached him unexpectedly, claiming to know the reason behind the children's deaths. The truth of the story unfolds gradually. Roderick had already lost 3 children. Many people attended the funeral that day, including the mothers of several children. He felt a bit agitated at the funeral. Since last night, Roderick had been tormented by illusions. He saw his deceased children appearing before his eyes, and they maintained their tragic state before death. His sister and wife helped him leave. Madeline couldn't let any more accidents happen, so she arranged bodyguards for the remaining 3 children. They would even stand guard outside the restroom. That night, the 3 of them gathered at the bar to have drinks. Speaking of which, except for Mike and Mary, who were born to Roderick's wife, the other 4 children were all illegitimate. Among the illegitimate children, Martha was the most reliable one. She suggested that no matter what our relationship is, we must unite. Mike and Mary also expressed their agreement. They had only been talking for less than 5 minutes. Mary and Martha started arguing. It's really difficult to make them unite. On the other side, the heavily injured sister-in-law finally regained consciousness. The skin graft surgery was the only thing left. The doctor recommended staying in the hospital for about 40 days for observation. However, Mike insisted on taking her back home. Meanwhile, Martha encountered trouble after returning home, because her partner found out about the human experiments. The new product didn't succeed even on the chimpanzees. How could they joke with people's lives? She said she would expose Martha's situation. The 2 of them had a very unpleasant argument. Martha was afraid that her partner would actually report her. She could only keep apologizing over the phone. Then, she heard a strange sound in her ear. Martha carefully listened to the source of the sound. She determined that the strange sound came from the smoke detector. She immediately took it down to inspect it. The strange sound still persisted, and except for Martha, no one else could hear it, because the Usher family had 3 consecutive murder cases. So, lawyer PYM applied to the court to postpone the trial of the pharmaceutical case. Prosecutor Jason, of course, refused to agree. As time went on, Roderick would surely escape legal punishment again. PYM expressed it's okay if he wants to proceed with the trial on time. Didn't Jason say that he had an informant within the Usher family? As long as Jason reveals the informant's identity, the Usher family is willing to attend the trial as scheduled. The story comes to this point. Roderick couldn't help but ask Jason, who exactly is the informant? The other party replied that there was no informant at all. He just wanted to create discord within the Usher family. Roderick felt very happy after hearing this. It was impressive that the most upright prosecutor could deceive the court. He was truly excellent. Roderick not only remembered many years ago, when they teamed up to deal with the boss of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals, Roderick knew that the boss had a document on illegal drug experiments. He had his sister Madeline pretend to sell computer technology to find out the location of those documents. The treatment of women in the workplace in the 1980s was very poor. The boss didn't care about computer technology at all. He hinted to Madeline that she needed relationships to get promoted. Madeline endured her disgust and continued probing. In the end, she concluded the documents still existed, and they were in paper form in the basement. But the boss would definitely try to destroy these illegal records during the construction of the new office, so they had to retrieve the documents as soon as possible. Roderick risked entering the basement. He made copies of the boss's criminal evidence. Just as he finished speaking, Roderick's hallucination occurred again. He saw Jason's heart beating rapidly. Blood gradually soaked his white shirt, and this scene corresponded to Martha's death. Roderick regained his composure and continued telling the story of the 6 children's deaths. Lawyer PYM found a picture of a woman on Jack's phone, and this woman also appeared at the scenes of the first 2 children's deaths. Roderick and Madeline knew this person. She was Winnie from a bar. The 3 of them met on New Year's Eve in 1980. but more than 40 years have passed since then. Even if Winnie is still around, she should be an old person by now. PYM was listening with confusion on the side. He quickly asked what was going on. Madeline explained that on New Year's Eve in 1980, Roderick had a relationship with Winnie in the bar. That Winnie looked exactly like the person in the photo. Maybe she got pregnant back then, and gave birth to a daughter who looked like herself. Now she wants to kill all the half-siblings and become the first in line for inheritance. PYM asked the two to provide the location of the bar. He immediately went to investigate. Meanwhile, the mysterious Winnie had already disguised herself as a heart patient and gained Martha's trust. The two of them were discussing the transplant surgery. Winnie mentioned that before the surgery began, she wanted to talk to her previous doctor. If the doctor agreed, she would undergo the transplant surgery, and that doctor happened to be Martha's partner. Martha naturally couldn't let them meet. At this moment, the strange noises in her ears resurfaced. She instantly lost interest in the conversation. She asked Winnie to leave the office, and began searching through drawers and cabinets for the source of the sound. On the other side, Roderick was still thinking about Winnie. Actually, Madeline was mistaken about one thing. He never had a relationship with Winnie at all. It was impossible for them to have a daughter together. There had been too many strange occurrences lately, coupled with the torment of hallucinations. Roderick felt exhausted. He even had thoughts of suicide, but every time, he couldn't bring himself to do it. When Roderick couldn't sleep, he would talk to his third daughter, Martha. In order to cultivate 6 people into talents, he always encouraged them to compete with each other. He hadn't fulfilled his responsibilities as a father. Roderick sincerely apologized to Martha, and he expressed gratitude for the success of her heart mesh experiment, because Roderick had codicil. If the human experiment of the third daughter is successful, there is a possibility of curing his illness. This should have been a very emotional scene. While Martha appeared very neurotic, she asked Roderick if he had heard strange noises.
I mean, do you hear that? Because people keep telling me they can't hear it.
Roderick realized that something was wrong with his daughter. Suddenly, he smelled a foul odor. So, following the smell, he opened the bedroom door. He discovered the brutally murdered partner. The person's chest had been cruelly cut open. The medical instruments inside were still pulsating. It turned out that on the day Martha argued with her partner, she had lost control and smashed the person to death, and Martha had used the partner's body to complete the heart mesh transplant experiment. However, for some reason, Martha had suddenly forgotten about this incident in the past few days. She had been constantly apologizing to the partner over the phone. As for the strange noises in her ears, they were caused by the heart mesh device, emitting pacing sounds when stimulating a deceased heart. Now that she saw the partner's body, she finally remembered what had happened. But Martha's mental state had already deteriorated. She refused to accept the reality of the partner's death, and she ended her own life right then and there. Mary, who hadn't appeared for a long time, is currently preparing for the grand opening of the Golden Beetle brand. She hasn't slept for several days due to being busy. Her mental state is very poor. In addition, her husband has too many opinions about the opening ceremony. This makes Mary's mood even worse. She chose this fitness influencer as her husband. It's because she values his influence. She wanted him to endorse and promote the Golden Beetle brand. Surprisingly, he wanted to get involved in important decisions. Mary had a direct argument with him. Unexpectedly, since tonight, she started behaving abnormally. The green dress she took out a second ago suddenly turned black. The time it took to boil water and make coffee, the kettle could move instantly. Mary felt like she hadn't rested well and was seeing things. Tomorrow is the Golden Beetle's grand opening. She must gather her spirits, but who would have thought that while taking a nap, her speech manuscript would be scribbled all over? While she was wondering, a dark figure flashed at the door. Mary rushed to investigate, but she found on the kitchen counter, lying a box with the Golden Beetle logo on it. When she looked again, the box was already empty. Mary quickly went back to take melatonin. She hoped to get a good rest and rejuvenate. Unexpectedly, the usual effective medication didn't work. She became more and more restless. Jason couldn't help but ask Roderick when he heard this. How could you know all these things if you weren't with the child for 24 hours? Roderick said, because they all told me. The spirits of the 6 children have always been by my side. What you need to do is continue to listen. Roderick witnessed Martha's suicide right in front of him. He returned to the office alone. At this moment, he hadn't forgotten to take the heart-shaped mesh with him. After all, this patent had involved a huge investment. Madeline heard the news of Martha's death. She hurriedly came to meet her brother. If these children with ownership stakes continue to die, they will lose control over the board of directors. Roderick must pull himself together. The next day, Martha's tragic death made headlines. The remaining 2 children were very nervous, afraid that the next one to die would be themselves. Meanwhile, PYM found a medical record at Martha's house. The photo on the ID card was clearly a disguised Winnie. PYM went to the address stated on the medical record. Unexpectedly, he arrived at Roderick and Madeline's childhood home. This place had never been made public to the media. How did the mysterious woman know about this place? PYM investigated the bar Roderick mentioned, and found that the land had been vacant since 1975. There was no bar there at all. However, that person Winnie did exist. Roderick used facial recognition to identify her face. He conducted a large-scale search on the internet. The results showed that this person was mingling with various influential figures. Her appearance had remained unchanged for centuries. It seemed that the enemy of the Usher family was not Winnie's daughter, but Winnie herself. Roderick couldn't understand. He had no grievances or conflicts with this person. Why would she harm his children? On the other side, Mary's press conference is about to begin. She really wants her father to be present at the venue, to witness her own success, but Roderick is deeply immersed in chaos and unable to attend. In the end, only Madeline attends. Mary is disappointed, but as long as this press conference is successful, she is certain she can show her talent to her father. Little did she know, right as the opening ceremony begins, Mary sees a woman wearing the same outfit as her standing on the stage. She immediately goes out to question her, only to realize that the person is just the host. Mary looks at the audience below and can only muster the courage to start her speech. Luckily, she has excellent abilities, and she quickly stabilizes the atmosphere of the venue. Just as the press conference is going well, she suddenly sees the mistress whom her husband had an affair with sitting in the audience. Mary doesn't know that Winnie is behind this mischief. Her emotions gradually spiral out of control, and the hallucinations in front of her intensify. Mary sees the visuals on the presentation slides, transforming into an arrogant mistress. Videos of her husband's affair with the woman are played publicly. Angry, she grabs the microphone stand and smashes it, then sees the mistress approaching her. Mary directly throws the microphone stand at the person. As a result, she knocks out her stepmother, Juno. The situation at the venue completely spirals out of control. Madeline quickly rushes towards the backstage area. Unexpectedly, she sees Winnie in the crowd. She chases after her, wanting to catch her. To her surprise, Winnie disappears on the spot. Madeline's hands are stained with dirt. At the same time, the out-of-control Mary runs back home. She sees the figure of the mistress once again. She picks up the stick at the entrance hall, continuously smashing it towards the figure. But in reality, there is nothing in front of her. Mary only shatters one glass after another. Her hands and feet are cut by the shards. But the hallucination is not over yet. Suddenly, she jumps onto the bed in the bedroom. She forcefully shatters the mirror on the ceiling, then falls onto the bed full of shattered glass pieces. She dies pierced by countless shards of mirror. Now, only Mike is left among the 6 children. The Usher family's position on the board is precarious. Although Roderick got secrets about the board members, stronger measures must be taken now. In the face of a new round of board voting, the stake held by the eldest son is crucial. Roderick believes there is still a chance to turn the tables. Meanwhile, Madeline looks at her out-of-control brother, thinking he is not suitable to continue leading the Usher family. Therefore, Madeline privately talks to PYM, expressing that her algorithm project is almost complete. She can steer the company away from pharmaceuticals and officially enter the tech industry. Artificial intelligence, virtual immortality. These are the future of the company. Madeline wants to replace her brother and become the new CEO. PYM agrees to lend a helping hand to Madeline. On the other side, Mike is unaware that his fate is about to change. He is torturing his wife at home. He hates his wife for deceiving him into going to attend his younger brother's party. Therefore, he traps her at home. He doesn't allow any doctors to come and provide medical care. Mike even adds paralyzing substances from the Nightshade family into her bag. This ensures that his wife will remain paralyzed and bedridden. At this moment, Roderick calls him to arrange a meeting. He informs Mike that the board of directors is about to vote. Your vote is crucial. You must vote for me. Mike, rarely receiving his father's approval, promises on the spot that he won't be swayed by anyone. Roderick reminds him not to forget to handle the illegal building. Soon, Mike discovers that people in the company are trying to please him. He gradually tastes the power. His pride as the eldest son is satisfied. Mike can't help but flaunt his authority. He intensifies his torment of his wife. He even pulls out her teeth. Satisfied, he leaves the room. He prepares to demolish the derelict building. Unexpectedly, the daughter arrives with documents. She requests to transfer her mother to a burn hospital. While the father's attitude is very firm, he doesn't allow anyone to move his wife. The daughter, wanting to visit her mother, is also locked outside the door. Roderick's story becomes longer and longer as he speaks. Jason's patience gradually wears thin. He doesn't want to waste any more time with him. Unexpectedly, Roderick says that if Jason can listen to the whole story, he will hand over the evidence of his alleged murder. Jason can only continue listening. Who would have known that Roderick suddenly stops talking? It's because he experiences strange hallucinations again. He sees his ex-wife holding their young eldest son. Roderick picks up Mike, only to realize that the young child is broken into 2 pieces. This foreshadows Mike's cause of death. Roderick looks at the child in his arms, inevitably recalling the last time he held him, which was outside the courtroom. At that time, Roderick obtained evidence of his boss's crime, and appear in court as a witness with Jason. Unexpectedly, during the trial, Roderick claimed that the forgery of the signature did not exist. He came to testify, only to get rid of Jason's harassment. He ruined Jason's future. It turns out that everything was a plan by Roderick and his sister. The purpose was to eliminate Jason for the company, and gain recognition from the board of directors. Roderick's wife is an honest person, and refuses to accept her husband's actions. Therefore, she leaves Roderick with their child. Mike entered the abandoned building and took a breath of powder. Then he unzipped his pants. He urinated towards the place where his younger brother died tragically. Mike deeply resented his brother, who had seduced his wife. Unexpectedly, the powder he inhaled earlier had issues. He suddenly lost strength and fell to the ground. Then Winnie slowly emerged. It turned out that she had replaced the powder with a paralyzing substance intended for Mike's wife. Winnie originally didn't want to get personally involved, but Mike's despicable actions towards his wife made her feel incredibly disgusted. Winnie imitated Mike's voice and ordered the construction workers outside to start demolishing. In the next moment, a huge hammer smashed through the wall. The steel bars from above hung down to the ground, and they severed Mike's body in half. After hearing the news of his death, Madeline found Roderick alone and asked her brother if he still remembered that deal. The sound of the New Year's bell seemed to ring in their ears. That year, the members of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals gathered together to welcome the arrival of 1980. Roderick and Madeline were also present at this masquerade ball. The 2 of them became the center of attention due to the perjury incident. They instantly became the focus of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals. They drank with the boss, but the siblings always remembered that this company was founded by their biological father. Their mother had also worked here for over 20 years. What they wanted was not just re-employment. The 2 of them drugged the boss, and then Madeline used her seductive charm to lure him to a secluded place. The boss suddenly felt his consciousness blur. He immediately fainted. When he woke up again, he realized that he was trapped in the foundation of the new building. Roderick and Madeline were building the wall. No matter how much the boss pleaded, they were unmoved. Madeline advised the boss not to waste his energy anymore. Due to the holiday season, everyone would only return to work after a week, saying that they sealed the last brick, on which a line was engraved, "You are so insignificant." To ensure that nothing would go wrong, the 2 of them casually found a bar to create an alibi for themselves, and there they met Winnie. This mysterious woman saw through their crimes and offered a deal. She could make Roderick and Madeline become the owners of Fortunato Pharmaceuticals and escape legal consequences for a lifetime. However, all the sins must be borne by the next generation, and once the deal begins, only death can bring it to an end. The siblings have always resented their lack of achievement, so they agreed to Winnie's proposal. When the night ended, the 2 of them walked out of the room, but when they turned around, they found that the bar no longer existed. They thought it was just an illusion, but after returning to the company, they rose rapidly, and they relied on the painkiller Ligidone to become legends in the pharmaceutical industry. No matter what crimes they committed, they couldn't be caught. Now Madeline brings out a bottle of Ligidone from the 1980s. She wants her brother to put an end to it. Roderick knows that this is the only way left. He swallows 80 milligrams of the medication, prepared to sleep without pain. Madeline places the bottle in her brother's hand. She leaves the scene of his death. Little did she know, Winnie suddenly appears. She resurrects Roderick. She can't let him escape easily. After all, Roderick's bloodline isn't completely extinguished. Mike's daughter, Ellie, is still alive. At this moment, Ellie discovers the truth of her father's abuse towards her mother. She chooses to report it to the authorities. Despite PYM's efforts to stop her, Ellie bravely steps forward to protect her mother. Roderick is relieved to hear about this, because Ellie resembles his first wife. She can be considered the last conscience of the Usher family. The eldest son and daughter from back then also inherited their mother's good qualities. But when Roderick took custody away from his wife, he destroyed the conscience of both children with money. Only his granddaughter Ellie remained steadfast. However, this treasure is soon to be taken away as well. Winnie first finds PYM. She admires this exceptionally skilled lawyer. Therefore, she presents a condition. Soon, the Usher family will be completely wiped out. The previous deal will be nullified as a result. Without the protection of the deal, all the crimes will be exposed. At that time, PYM will certainly be implicated and imprisoned. Winnie can help him escape unscathed. but PYM must surrender his loved one as a bargaining chip. He responds, "I am alone. Without a loved one, he won't make any deals." PYM is willing to accept his fate. Winnie respects his decision. In the next second, she disappears in place. Afterwards, she goes to find Ellie. Before taking action, Winnie tells the girl, "Your mother will overcome this difficult situation. She will fully recover in less than 3 years. When Fortunato Pharmaceuticals dissolves, she will inherit a substantial fortune and establish a foundation in Ellie's name to help more people overcome illness. She will save hundreds and thousands of people and spread this act of kindness. And these futures can happen, all thanks to Ellie stepping up to protect her mother. One small choice can impact the lives of millions of people." Winnie hopes Ellie understands this. After saying this, she takes away Ellie's life. Jason immediately raises a question. "But Ellie sent you a text message not long ago." Roderick explains that Madeline has an artificial intelligence project. It can scan Mary's social media and create a digital version of her. The text message Roderick just received was actually sent by Digital Ellie. The death of his granddaughter makes Roderick lose all hope for life. He looks at the stormy night with lightning and thunder, seeing countless bodies falling to the ground. All these people died from Ligudon, died from his pharmaceutical empire. Roderick looks at the mountain of corpses, realizing it's time to end everything. He calls Madeline to the old mansion. After learning about Ellie's tragic death, she still shows no reaction. She is not afraid of Winnie. She is still envisioning her business empire.
Oh, she wants Madeline. Fucking Usher. She's gonna have to look me straight.
The next second, Madeline realizes she feels weak all over. Then she falls into her brother's arms. It turns out Roderick drugged her drink. He decides to give Madeline a queen's treatment to send Madeline on her way. So Roderick digs out her eyes and embeds 2 sapphires in Madeline's eye sockets. These gemstones were embedded in the eyes of an Egyptian pharaoh from the 19th dynasty during their burial. Roderick spent several years and paid a sky-high price to establish connections in order to buy them and give them to his sister as a birthday present. Now that everything is settled, Roderick instructs Jason to leave as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, the door to the basement suddenly swings open. Madeline, who had her eyes gouged out, walks out. She is surprisingly not completely dead yet. Madeline lunges at her brother and chokes him. Jason quickly runs out of the room upon seeing this. The next second, the entire wooden house collapses, crushing the 2 siblings completely. Amidst the lightning and thunder, Winnie's figure stands amidst the ruins. In the blink of an eye, she transforms into an entirely black raven. It is said that ravens are messengers of Satan. Wherever they go, they leave behind only shadows of death. Later, Jason resigns and retires. Juno inherits a staggering $4.5 billion fortune. She knows that no one can bear the amount of this money, so she dissolves Fortunato Pharmaceuticals and donates most of the money. Meanwhile, PYM is taken away by the police. He confesses to all his crimes. It's likely he will spend a long time in prison. The entire Usher family comes to an end. The movie comes to an end as well. The dialogue in a theatrical style, a mysterious and grandiose narrative style. Multiple storylines converge in the end. The truth behind all the suspense is finally revealed. The story is very simple. It's about 2 heartless businessmen who use their descendants as bargaining chips for success and ultimately lose everything. The director's aesthetic sense is excellent. He is skilled at creating mystery. It can keep the audience engaged throughout.